Today it's a beautiful day and we're heading out to Irvine Regional Park in the city of Orange to catch up with a couple of retired park rangers. Today we're going to speak with Ron Nadeau, retired supervising park ranger, and Mike Miniaci, retired supervising park ranger, who were amongst the first rangers hired in the first days of Orange County Parks. We're going to visit them at the old cafe building, sometimes known as the old soda fountain building. Let's see what they had to say.
Well, I guess I can start. We met in 1980. I used to work for a company called Market Basket in Anaheim. We had an earthquake. In the earthquake, the structure of the store was such that we couldn't work there any longer, and I got transferred to another Market Basket where Mike worked. Okay. So we've known one another since 1980. That's how we met.
Okay, and apparently beyond that, as you decided to turn that corner in your lives and your careers, you wound up heading out to the County of Orange Parks Department. And I'm going to ask each one here. Mike, what led you to come to work for Orange County Parks?
Well, we used to have, working in the store, an hour for lunch. I would eat, 15 minutes, it would be gone, and then I'd got a notebook and started figuring out what my pension would be in the grocery industry, because at that time they only allowed you to earn 20 years towards that, and then it stopped. You know. So I thought, well, if I get a second career, it would probably be 30 years, and started there, then I'd have 50 years to earn pension credits.
So I'll start off as the basis of what's retirement going to look like.
Exactly.
Okay, how about you, Ron?
Well, through him. What Mike didn't throw in there is that when he was working at the store, he was also working for the Museum of Fullerton. So he had a little bit of history working in history. And so when he started with the county, what he ended up doing was pull me in as a volunteer. So that was 86. And then in 87, the Ranger Reserve Program started, which I joined. And voila, I was in. And to correct what you said at the beginning, it was EMA then. It wasn't Harbors and Beaches and Parks.
So that's what he came to.
No. It was the Environmental Management Agency, and Harbors, Beaches, and Parks was a subset. Okay. Anyhow, I guess another question I would have then is, okay, you mentioned you came in when the Ranger Reserve Program started. Were you in the first academy?
I was.
Okay.
Graduated the first academy.
Did you learn some interesting things when you went through that program? Because that was the first academy that the Parks Department never put on. And it was funny because we had to fight for more than 10 hours of training. They were going to, all they wanted to do was give people 10 hours of training, put them in a ranger uniform, and send them out, in the public setting. And of course, we finally justified it and needed more training than that, and wound up with 80 hours. So, okay. Anyways, what was one of your initial assignments, Mike, when you came to work in the parks?
Well, I was doing studies at UCLA where they had seminars for museum specialists, and also at USC where they would take you out. It was a semester, but each week you would go to a different area in LA County with an architect that was specialized in restoration and preservation, and went all the way through LA County, and we had an 8-hour seminar every week to learn how to do restoration and historic sites.
So history is a subject that you've been interested in for quite a while, or early childhood, or what?
Yes, actually, when I was 7 years old, I learned about the Trojan War, and I trained the other guys in the neighborhood. We made our own weapons out of wood, swords, bows and arrows, and shields, so forth. The shields are the main things. That's what's going to keep you from getting shot by the other guy. And then later on, I started collecting books about history because I was so entranced by history. And that's probably all you need to know right now. Because I'm 73 years old.
Ron, you came to work as a Ranger Reserve and soon moved into the ranks of Ranger Park Ranger. You worked in many facilities and rose through the ranks of park rangers while you worked for the parks. How many years did you work on parks?
21. I worked 30 in the grocery business. Got that behind me. Did 21 more in the parks.
Wow, that's a long time. Anyhow, while working in the parks, you got involved in some interpretive educational programs that involved a new identification of park rangers called the Dusty Ranger. And I want to remark a little bit about the Dusty Rangers.
Well, my first assignment was at Beverly Park, and one of the things that at that time Tim Miller, our manager, wanted me to be able to do was start doing a program. There was just movies were only shown at the campsite, the campfire program. So just started doing some musical dabbling, writing a few songs and playing campfire. And, it worked out well. We had big crowds. We had a lot of Boy Scouts and a lot of campers. And, anyway.
You guys were pretty talented, though. Actually, you wrote some actual nature songs and stuff that went over very big. And I don't know if you know this stat, the one cable TV show that you did called The Ocean Begins in Our Front Door.
Right.
30-minute show that was done back in the 80s, I think, late 89, or no, 90s.
And I was in there in 91 or 2.
91 or 92. Besides being a cable show, the Public Works cashier for Orange County sold VHS copies of that to what turned out to be over 1,000 different schools and teachers bought those because they thought it was great, it was informative, the songs were perfect for elementary school age kids, and it really hit. And 2 years ago I found out that those things are still circulating in the school departments. So a good program has no shelf life, I guess. But and the other thing was that we didn't find out for weeks after the program happened was that show actually received a Clio Award for quality and educational focus, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
So that's a pretty good job. Now I'm going to bounce back over here to you, Mike, again, and ask you a question about historical interpretive programs. Now, I'm going to mention a place you spent some time at, historic George Key Ranch. And you want to talk about that, what that was like?
Yes, I was there for a total of 13 years. And when I first came there, there was a lot of restoration work that had to be done. And I knew how to do it. And I had 2 guys working there. So a lot of the things we did, we were able to complete with no additional cost to the county.
But is there like hundreds or whatever artifacts there? Of
10,000.
10,000 artifacts in there.
That's correct.
They're all cataloged now and all that stuff?
They were cataloged at one time. But the thing is, things that have been moved around in the property, so you're kind of hard to, it was done room by room, I think is the way it's done.
And that
That was before I came there.
Yeah, the Key Ranch was pretty popular venue for school tours too, right?
Oh, yes, and it was one of the original Sunkiss growers. When he got the land in 1893, and then we had Centennial.
So originally the ranch was an orange grove ranch?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in Placentia, all the growers, their family organizations, and you'd start with 20 acres, and then you'd make sure that there's at least 10 acres of oranges. And the lunches are easy to pick in the summer, because you don't want to have it picking in the rain. Like navels are ripening in the winter, pretty much. And so anyway, I had the opportunity of meeting 4 generations of the Key family.
Wow.
There are 3 Georges, and I knew the 2nd George and the 3rd George, and then of course their children, and they helped us raise money for projects.
That's great. I remember back in the day, we had done a little taping of George Key on his front porch, memories of his childhood, and what they did for fun. And he was very good at painting the setting of, no freeways, no paved streets, nobody had a car, he mostly walked everywhere he went, but they still had fun, and he was a great guy.
Oh, yeah.
Anyhow, well, there's always some fun things that park rangers enjoy doing. There's also serious matters that they get involved with. too, typical emergencies and stuff like that. One of the most recent things, well, almost seems to be ongoing in Southern California, is the fear and threat of brush fires. Rod, did you have any things where you were on duty when a fire broke out?
No, actually not where I was working, but at Carbon Canyon where I live. We had several. In fact, I remember one of them in 1990 where you and the Sheriff's Department did a film flyover afterwards of
Right.
that fire.
That's right.
And document that. So that was, and then I ended up working at the park, helping out when they used it as a fire base camp.
Right.
Fortunately, all of our fire base camp training helped us with a lot of that, writing our own fire plans for each park, which I did for the Oaks and for Yorba too.
Yeah, a lot of initial things were done back in that day because the
Learning.
Ranger program was fairly new. Yeah, fairly new. How about you, Mike? Did you have any flash floods or earthquakes or anything that you had to deal with?
Well, when the Carbon Canyon fire, it didn't actually start in the park, but right across the street in the oil fields is where they started. And so I stopped people entering the park, because what they would do is they would block the fire department when they came in. And we had 3 fires in 3 weeks. Because kids would be coming down up there in where it attaches in the state park, which butts up right to our park there. They'd come in and they'd light matches and swing on trees into the water. But it wasn't in our park, it was
Upstream.
Chino's park, Chino Canyon Park. Anyway, and then Ron brought me out there because I was working there when, he was working as a reserve. We did a lot of programs together. And so I was like to say, well, I got the history and you got the natural history, and now he's probably reading more history books than I am.
I'm sure you guys still have an occasion to go by and either have a picnic or a family get-together or something in some of the Orange County parks. Here it is 2018, the 21st century, and you've both been retired for quite a while now. So how do you think the parks are looking? I mean, are the new rangers and the staff keeping things up to snuff?
Looks it to me, because I still use a lot of the parks. I myself my annual pass. It looks fine. The landscaping looks fine. I can see though that the Chaco polar beetle has raised its ugly head at a few parks. I'm really kind of concerned about that. Beyond the parks, I'm glad that they're at least supplied. They're doing their darndest, that's for sure.
In Carbon Canyon back in the 60s, they started that sub-canyon of Carbon Canyon, they started planting redwood trees. And I think Tim Miller, when he was a Ranger 1, he was heavily involved in it because he thought it was something that would really be a nice venue to hike to and so on and so forth. How do you think those trees look today?
Well, I think they look really good. Before I retired, I had Featherway, Yorba, and Carbon Canyon Park. And they were stressing a little bit. Nobody seemed to know exactly what to do with them. So we ended up, thanks to the county allowing us to hire a specialist. We did borings around the road to find out the soil. The water table was higher there for some reason. All those houses that we over on, they kind of raised it up. So, and he put forth a plan to manage those redwoods because they're a great draw also to the park. And I think I retired before the time that initiated. I think they're doing a good job with them. They're really nice.
Well, let me ask you first, Mike. What do you miss about working in the parks?
Number one is the guys I work with, the Rangers, and maintenance people too. A lot of, they have some good employees all down the line. But of course, the Rangers, we pretty much help each other out. And having not worked in a park before when I was hired as a Ranger, I depended on you guys to trained me about the history of parks and how things change. So, believe me, I miss the guys who work with
And you, Ron?
Well, of course, that's part of it. I enjoy the natural resource part of it more than the urban setting, the hiking, the exploring the woods. I think Orange County parks is like the future in parks all over the place because we're getting all that development. We're getting use from 100 different directions in every facility. We deal with encroachments, which others will as they develop. But, so I think we're the future of the parks are going to be like this population increases.
You're talking about how Orange County parks have been discovered, not only by people that live or work within Orange County, but the surrounding counties are very much into it as well. I know that for most group shelters and group areas that are subject to reservation, you almost have to apply 12 months in advance because they book up that quickly. And that says a lot about the facilities today. It's kind of interesting that back in the 80s, we were opening new facilities and expanding existing facilities with phase 2 being built, phase 3 being built. But it got us to where the park system is today. And you look back in the history of the parks to guys like Cy Featherly and Ronald Caspers, who were on the board of supervisors back in the 50s when there were no freeways in Orange County or anything like that, who looked to the future to set aside lands for public use and then also provided for the funding of the property taxes actually made it happen. And that made it happen and made it survive all these years. And the people of Orange County are very thrilled to have very quality parks, historical facilities and harbors and all those things and beaches that exist today, and that they are well maintained because that's what they expect. Anyhow, I guess in closing, I would ask you guys, is there any advice you give to a new park ranger from your perspective? In other words, continuing education is great, or diversified training, or
keep your eyes open.
keep your eyes open.
You never know what's coming down the road.
Right, yeah. You're talking about public encounters, and you can never underestimate what some people we usually refer to as the unfriendlies that would show up at parks and cause problems. You guys remember any funny anecdote of an incident you handled that was just so unreal, but it took place?
Yeah, several of them.
When I was at Fenway Park, I had I don't know, it was dark, so it was usually 10 or so o'clock at night. We had a guy wielding a machete coming through the campground. People were all upset and calling me up saying, there's a guy out here with a machete. I couldn't find him. Finally, he comes up to the booth, and what he wanted to do was stop the train because he thought it was full of some sort of contraband. And, he was screaming and yelling. So I walked up to him and started whispering to him and calming him down. And I said, let me see your machete. He hands me his machete. Thank you. I walk over to the booth, and we had a park aide in the park attendant in the booth. I handed it inside the door, and he slammed the door and locked it. And we ended up having to call the police because it was 5150 clearly. Nailed it very well. But I know I'm making it sound like it was funny, but it wasn't so funny at the time. But looking back at it, it became funny. I didn't know if he was going to swing it at me or what. But I had people standing around wondering what I was going to do. Of course, you got to remember our vehicles, orange with orange lights. And that really goes with the threat to them, right? No peace officer status.
How about you, Mike?
Well, I remember at Carbon Canyon, actually Carbon Canyon made a big impression on me because up till then I'd been working on the historic sites, which was my assignment. And I heard, it was Saturday morning, and I heard a lot of honking of horns out there, and the old office is right next to the where the gate is to get in. And I looked out the other door and I said, there's no cars waiting in line there. And so finally I said, I better go out and find out what's going on. I went out there, there was an empty car that was locked, blocking going forward to go to the gate. So I thought, well, let's see, if there's nobody here, they can't even come in off the road, they have to back out on Carbon Canyon Road, which would be like suicide. Anyway, so I
Well, that's back in the days before they had a traffic light, and that's the old interest.
yeah, the old interest there. Yeah. And so I called Brad PD and I said, I've got an abandoned car that's blocking anybody from going into the park or even going around the loop to go back out. And so they said, well, the only thing we can do is we can come out and tow it out if it is abandoned. Well, there's nobody in it. I think that's probably what the abandoned word means. And so I walked out there and I was going around looking at all the windows to see if there's somebody hiding in there or whatever. And so anyway, this lady comes walking out of the park to get her car. I don't know why she stopped there. There's 5 parking places right alongside the road where she could get pulled in. So anyway, I asked her, I said, well, is this your car here? Yes. And I said, well, why didn't you just pull into a parking place? Well, those are 20-minute parking and I wasn't going to be here that long.
Okay.
And then the police showed up.
Really got funny, didn't it?
You know, that was funny.
Sure it did.
And she said, well, I wanted to go in and take a look at the park before I drove in. And I said, well, I think all those people behind you are more wondering why you didn't pull off to the side and let them in, because they already know about the park. I mean, and, you know, it's just, that was one of the first times I had that kind of a...
Park entry's only getting more challenging on holidays.
That's right, yeah.
Well, the park's filled to capacity by 9 o'clock in the morning. People could still walk in, but there was not any parking space left in the major regional
Oh,
parks.
yeah.
Anyhow, you know, there's an expression that we use for the folks that are participating in, like yourselves, that are participating in preserving the living history of OC parks, which kind of came out of the timeline when Tim Miller passed away in 2013. And they're talking about different things and people forgetting about different things and wondering about different things. And so it evolved into a Facebook page called We Were Park Rangers once. And the interesting part about that is the expression Park Rangers, because I know during my career, when people came to regional park, anybody they saw in any type of a uniform, they assumed they were a park ranger and would go to them for help or directions or whatever else, because do you remember what the #1 question is asked in a park ranger park?
Where's the bathroom?
Where's the bathroom? Where's the restroom? And it holds true today, I'm sure.
Yeah.